Welcome to the Drawing Board. I am your host and in-house artist, Erin Leffler. If you're not familiar with the Drawing Board, here's a quick recap of what happens on the show. Every episode of the Drawing Board, I invite guests from the comics and entertainment industry, and we learn a little bit more about what they do. And while we're learning about what they do, I'm also drawing them. Pretty fun, right? Well, I'm super excited to introduce y'all to my guest this week because it's somebody who I've been a big fan of with her work on stage and on screen, and also her singing because it's absolutely incredible. She has done a lot of cool work, including Rapunzel's Tangled Adventure on the Disney Channel, which a lot of you kiddos might know. Please welcome my guest, actress and singer Eden Espinosa. Hi there.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on. So
Of
for kids who
course.
might not be familiar with what you do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do for work?
Yes, I am a mostly theater actress. I've done a lot of work on and off Broadway and regionally all over the country. And I've done a little bit of TV and film. I've also done a lot of voiceover, and I'm also a songwriter. So I have albums out of my own music as well. So yeah, just I'm dabbling in a lot of different areas.
I love that. Now, how long have you been doing this?
Oof. I mean, I've always loved singing and dancing and acting since I was a kid. It was a hobby at first, and I started working professionally. Oh gosh, I mean, well over 20 years ago. My first paid job as a performer was when I was 10 or 11 and on a children's album.
Wow.
And so, but I've been working pretty consistently since I was in high school. Like I used to work at Disneyland and Universal Studios and entertainment there. So yeah, a long time.
That is incredible. Did you go to school for this? Because I know that's something that a lot of people have like differing opinions on whether like school is necessary for it.
Yeah, I did not. I didn't go to college for performing, but I did take a 2-year acting program in New York. Well after I was college aged. It was only like a few years ago that I loved and changed my life. And I have, it's do I think a college degree is necessary to be a professional in this industry? No, but it provides an amazing space to grow and to learn and to make mistakes and to hone your craft and to find out who you are and what you have to offer and what makes you unique.
Yeah.
But as far as like at the end of the day, when a job is concerned, it's not, it's whoever they want for the job. But I think there's amazing college programs out there nowadays. I used to teach at NYU for a while, and there's just so many good programs these days, a lot more than when I was younger.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like every time that you get out of school, there's always something that gets advanced in the meantime, and you're like, where was that when I was here? That didn't make it
Exactly.
easier for me.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
So with acting, there are so many amazing actors who have come before us, whether it be, the golden age of film, whether it be on Broadway. Was there anyone that you can remember growing up that really stood out in your mind that made you want to be an actress?
Um, it was, I think the first influence I had was the movie Annie, the movie of the musical Annie. And I wanted to be Annie. I didn't know if there would be or would ever be a little Mexican girl as Annie. But I was in love with that movie, and just like Bernadette Peters and Carol Burnett and Tim Curry and Ryan King, like that whole cast, I just loved so much. And it's so funny because when I moved to New York and started working, a lot of the Broadway community was like, that movie, they didn't do it's like not really the musical. And I didn't know because the movie was my first introduction to the musical. So I was like, oh no, people don't like it. I'm obsessed with it.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
a great film too. I remember growing up on that too, and just like I was a big fan of Carol Burnett, so like I don't blame you at all.
Oh,
Like that cast was just fantastic.
so good. So good.
This is a question I love getting to talk about because a lot of times when I'm guesting at Comic Cons, kids will ask me this, and I feel like with the media, we kind of get a little misconstrued because kids think the only way to be good at your job is to only do your job 24/7. Do you think that having hobbies are important? And if so, what are some of your hobbies that you like doing?
Nice. I do think they're very important, especially in an industry that I think any industry isn't going to make you happy all the time, even if you
Yeah.
got into it because it was your passion. And if being on stage is the only thing that makes you happy, this business is not going to make you happy all the time because there's lots of times when you're not working. And so I do very much encourage people to be a little more well-rounded and to find other passions that you're good at or that you've never done before. And oddly enough, the pandemic has really given me an opportunity to rediscover old passions of mine. Photography is one of them. And I just started painting, which I'm sort of obsessed with. I'm not very good at it, but I really love it. And I love to read an actual book. I mean, do have digital copies of books, but I actually love to read a book. And hiking is another one of my hobbies as well.
Oh, I love that. I have not actually had anybody say photography as a hobby on here yet, so that is so cool. I love it
Nice. Oh, good. I'm
because
glad.
that's a great hobby to have. This is a topic I love getting to talk about because a lot of times in the entertainment industry, they kind of go hand in hand, which is competition and rejection. Because a lot of
Hmm.
times, whenever we're going up for jobs, whether it be for a part in a play, whether it's online trying to put our work out there, we are kind of put in competition with others that are doing the same thing. Do you
Yeah.
think that competition should be everything to be good at your job, or can you also make friends with people who do the same job as you?
Oh, I think you should make friends with people who do the same job as you. There is such a thing as healthy competition. Um, but I really feel in the years of me working professionally, I myself am just like, I want to lift everybody up and I want to cheer people on. And if I'm not the right person for the job, then of course I want it to go to somebody that I love and a friend of mine. And if they're chosen over me, that means it was supposed to be theirs. And what is supposed to be mine will happen when it's supposed to be mine. And it's hard to do. It's a skill. It's actually a skill I had to learn over time. To not take things personally. It doesn't mean you're not talented. It doesn't mean they're more talented than you. It's just they were the right person for the job. And so, but I also think it's good to be friends with people who don't do what you do to kind of, again, be more well-rounded and have other perspectives of what other people's day-to-day jobs are. It actually would make you appreciate things about their life, also makes you appreciate things about yours and your job and that you maybe didn't see before.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think that's a great way of putting it too, because it also kind of gives you kind of like that thing where you can step back and be like, okay, not everything, it's not shop talk 24/7. We could do something
Yeah.
else.
Yeah, and what's crazy is even if you have shop talk with somebody who doesn't do what you do for a living, you get a really beautiful perspective of what it looks like to them and how they feel when they come see you in a show. And you're like, oh, wow, that's really cool. And that makes me see things differently for myself. And, I always like look at other people that, like even moms, like full-time moms or teachers or, I can't want people who love to, who are architects or like, I can't even imagine what that is. I know I ask a bunch of millions of questions, people whose occupation, I'm just like, what is it like to do this? Or, what is it like to design something and then see it be brought to life in front of your eyes? It's just so cool. There are so many skills I wish I had that I don't. And I'm sure people feel the same way about me.
I think that's a great point to bring up because I haven't actually really had anybody talk about that, about also making friends outside of what you do, because that's important, having that mix of different voices because we can get different perspectives of even if somebody doesn't do what we do, it's kind of
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I mentioned that hand in hand with competition comes rejection because we do have to compete for jobs or we do have to compete to put our stuff online so that way it gets out there and people hear it. Is rejection something that you think kids should take personal, or is it something they can use more as like a learning tool?
Um, I think it's something that can be used as a learning tool. For sure. It hurts, of course, especially if you had your heart set on something, or, I really wanted to get that job, or I really wanted to get that part. And that's normal. That means you care, it means
Yeah.
you care about what you do and you're invested. But if you don't get a job, there's so many factors that you don't realize that go into things that have nothing to do with you. It's so crazy. Like, I've heard casting directors say, that person got the job because, they reminded them of their favorite aunt, or like something silly like that. Like sometimes it's so beyond out of your control that it doesn't mean that you're not talented. Like
Yeah.
we are all given a very specific set of unique gifts. And over time, as I've gotten older, I've learned to realize and really embrace that what is meant to be mine will be mine. And if it's a no, it's a form of protection, not rejection. There's always a bigger reason why you didn't get something. We might not know it right in that moment, but eventually we shall see, like, oh, that's why. There could be something even bigger and better coming down the road. You never know. So, and always, we're not always perfect. We're not always at our best. So sometimes I know, wow, I could have been better prepared for that audition, or I didn't do my normal routine and I was not grounded and I was really, really nervous, and, stuff like that. So that's how I use it as a learning tool as well.
Absolutely. I think that's a good part to bring out too, is because there's so many factors we don't think of when it comes to getting jobs or anything. It could be the weirdest, smallest thing, and we're not going to understand it, but it makes sense to the person who's giving the job. So that's a really great
Right.
point to talk about. Also, with rejection, hand in hand with that is social media, because in ways we can get rejected online, whether it be through putting, if we're, you do music, if you put music out there and it doesn't go as well as we think, that's kind of a form of rejection. And then if we get not so nice comments, that can also be a form of rejection. How do you think that kids should handle that when they're putting their work online?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I think it's something that we all think about and we all struggle with. And for me, I have to remind myself when I'm putting something out, an album or something I wrote, a blog post, or, anything really. I have to think about, why am I putting this out there? Am I putting this out there to get people to comment on it? Am I to get good feedback for validation, to make myself feel better? Or am I putting it out there because it's something that I created and I want to share it with the world? Because the truth of the matter is, you're not ever going to please everybody. Not everybody's going to like your art, no matter what it is, all the time. And that's
Yeah.
okay. It doesn't mean it's not good. It doesn't mean that, people aren't accepting it. It just means, like, that person didn't like it. We're all entitled to an opinion. There are things that, I'm like, oh, I didn't really care for that movie, or, it wasn't my cup of tea, or, what have you. But I think that it's important to check in with yourself. Am I putting this out there just to get likes on my page? Or am I putting
Yeah.
it out there because it's a piece of me that I have to share with the world?
And I think that applies to every job, because that's a lot of the time the problem is, nowadays social media is like everything. That's where you hear things on the news, that's where you see things. So we kind of think like, oh, what's going to get people to come look at me, what's going to
Mm-hmm.
get people to like me, but we don't think about, oh, is this an accurate representation of me, is this what I want to put out there? So
Yeah.
it's a very valid point that anyone, no matter what business, can walk away with, is just really evaluate what you're putting out there.
Yeah. And why?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for you, you've done so many different forms of acting. You've done on screen, on stage. I think that's really cool. Are there any differences that you can pinpoint that may be a little bit challenging, having to flip back and forth between the two?
Yeah. I primarily have the most of my experience in theater and live, even in singing live in concert. Um, and I've done very little in TV and film, but enough to know what the gist of it is. And it's a very different medium. Um, because, you know, theater, you get one shot, to it's live and it's happening right now. But it's a beautiful energy exchange between you and the audience. It's immediate. You know exactly if they're with you, you know exactly, you know, if something goes wrong, if they notice it. And I really love that opportunity to be invested in a story every single night.
Yeah.
You know, 8 shows a week, and you know, have a fresh new pair of eyes, a fresh new pair of ears. It's the first time they're hearing these words, and it's your opportunity to make it fresh and new for them every night, which I love. And you know, TV and film is very different. You know, there is no audience there, and you don't know exactly like, oh, did that work? You know, you have to trust your director. Go, was that right? Did that work? And so that's very different feeling. You know, and voiceover is very different than stage or film. You know, it's like you don't have to worry about what you look like, and you can act crazy in that booth in order to get a certain emotion across with just your voice, you know. So I love all three very, very much. But my favorite is live, you know, live performances and live theater for sure.
Absolutely. And as a New Yorker, I can say that Broadway is one of my favorite things, so I completely get it. The energy that you get watching a live show compared to something that's pre-recorded is just unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah. So good.
Now, I had mentioned this earlier, and a lot of my kiddos might know this. You are the voice of Cass on Rapunzel's Tangled Adventure, which is one of my
Yes.
favorite shows. I always tell everyone, I'm like, I'm an adult, but I got the like mindset of a 5-year-old. I love that show. And your song Waiting in the Wings won an Emmy. What is that like getting to win something like that?
Um, I mean, I didn't win the Emmy, but Alan Menken and Glenn Slater did, and the song did. And I'm so happy that and honored that I was able to bring that song to life and bring that character to life. It's, you know, I've been a fan of Alan Menken since I was a kid when Little Mermaid first came out. And I love Glenn Slater's lyrics so much. And to have the two of them who, you know, wrote songs for the movie, write songs for our series is just like a dream come true. So I was just so happy that my character was new, you know, new to the Tangled family, and that she was embraced so lovingly and accepted, and that she got to have so many amazing moments. And Waiting in the Wings was one of them for sure, and it's one of my favorite things I've ever gotten to do. I love the song very much.
I love that. I had James on here as well, and James said the same thing about the Little Mermaid. I just love how so many people are like, Little Mermaid was
Because
it.
that was the first one. That was the first of like the new
Yeah.
Disney movie musicals. And so, you know, I just remember sitting there watching, going, I've never seen anything so beautiful in all my life. And like, you know, I was obsessed with Jodie Benson, and who voiced, you know, Ariel. And yeah, so amazing.
That is so cool. Now, a few more questions for you before I'm able to show you what I was doing over here.
I'm so
Hollywood and
excited.
Broadway have made such long strides, but we still have a long way to go when it comes to diversity and inclusion on stage and screen. How important do you think it is for kids to be able to see people who look like them, who sound like them, and come from the same places that they do?
It's beyond important. It's necessary. It's imperative. You know, it's there's a lot of work being done right now. Now that Broadway is sleeping for the moment. um, and it's inspiring. It's encouraging. We know we have a lot more work to do. You
Mhm.
know, it's kind of like that line in Hamilton where, you know, planting seeds in a garden I might not ever get to see. But seeing representation and equity is so important, because everyone's story needs to be told. Everyone needs to be represented, not just a certain group of people, not just a certain class of people.
Yeah.
And it's important because, you know, I never saw it wasn't really until I was much older did I see people like me. And I just know that there are tons of young souls out there that might have the desire to do, you know, even work on a crew backstage. If they don't see any people that
Yeah.
look like them, then they don't think that they can do it. And, you know, so I feel very strongly, and I'm part of several organizations that have started since the pandemic to try and further diversity and equity in our community, for sure.
That is amazing. And thank you so much for helping put in that work, because I feel that was one of the things that when I was creating this show, I thought was a good thing, because I wanted to take people from all the different types of jobs and every background and every nationality. And I want kids to be able to see that no matter who you are, you can do these jobs. I think that's an important thing for kids to be able to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%.
You've gotten to work on so many cool different things and so many cool different shows. You played in one of my favorite Broadway shows, playing the role of Elphaba. Are there any memories that you can think of in particular that kind of stick out in your mind as one of the favorite things about your job?
Oh gosh, my time in Wicked. I mean, I spent 7 years on and off with that show, so it's a very significant show and very significant role for me. And you know, it was my Broadway debut. I was the original standby for Idina Menzel in the original company, and then went on to play the role in other places. And I think that like there are so many memories that are just like beautiful, shining nuggets of gold in my heart. But I think overall for me, what just is so humbling and keeps me in awe all the time is just being part of something that has such a legacy that all these years later, almost 17 years later, is still touching people's hearts and still speaking to audiences, and people still associate me with the show all these years later. And so that is so humbling. And I just kind of freak out a lot, that I'm just like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing, that there's multiple companies all over the world. And it's such a relatable story for not just young women, for older people, for young people, for men, for women, for, you know, anyone who's ever felt like an outcast or that they didn't belong, which most people have, if not everybody at some point. And so I'm just, I think overall, that's my biggest takeaway for my time with Wicked, that I was able to be a part of it at such an important time, and that I'm still a part of it and will always be. That's an honor.
That is awesome. I love always asking, because like I've had a few people on from Broadway, because I wanted to focus on Broadway the show, especially with the shutdown right now, because I feel like there needs to be more of an appreciation for live theater. But I love
Yeah.
getting to ask that question to everyone on who've worked in Broadway, because we all work in a lot of different things, but there's always like some sort of memory where we're like, oh yeah, that was really fun. I love that. And it's always like
Yeah,
such interesting stories too. So thank you for sharing that. I think
of
that was
course.
awesome. Now, do
Thank
you have any
you.
projects that you're working on or have worked on that you'd like to share with us a little bit?
I mean, the projects that I've been working on lately have all been behind the scenes. I started a nonprofit organization called Affect Change. Karen Olivo and I are the co-founders, and it's about educating and empowering artists, but also audience members and consumers of art on how the financial infrastructure of Broadway community works, and how we are working to create more opportunities for BIPOC and LGBTQIA people in behind the scenes, on stage, in the boardrooms, on executive boards. And so I've been working really hard on that. So check us out. We are on all the socials, and our website is affectchange.org, AFECT, which stands for Artists for Economic Transparency. And yeah, that's been taking up the majority of my work. Some voiceovers here and there, I can't talk about it yet because it hasn't come out. So I'm happy that even with the pandemic, I'm still able to do that. And that's it.
That is really cool. I can't even imagine how much work has to go into stuff like that. So I have the utmost respect for that because I know that there's a lot of hard work that goes into things like that for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Now, last question for you, my favorite one of the whole episode because it kind of just ties everything in a nice little bow, wraps it up. If there's a kid out there, a young adult or an adult who is interested in learning more about acting, who wants to get into acting, or is just even curious about it now, what is the one thing you'd like them to walk away from watching this learning?
Oh, I would say that there is a place for you, that even if you're interested in the slightest bit or curious, I say go for it. Don't be afraid. Even if it's just a hobby, I just want to try acting. I just want to try an acting class. It doesn't mean you have to do it for the rest of your life. It can mean you can do it just for a hobby. And you have to start somewhere. You have to start somewhere. So it's never too late. I took an acting program when I was in my 30s. So I say if it's something that's been knocking on your heart a little bit, that means there's something in you that really wants to explore that. So I encourage you to do so.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Of
And now
course.
goes my favorite part of the entire show where I'm able to show you what I was able to work on over here. I'm going to apologize in advance because my studio lights do sometimes mess with the computer screen, so I will send you an actual copy of this once I
Okay.
get it up in here. But I'm going to try my best to get this up in here. Let's see.
Oh my God. That is so cute.
Oh,
Are
I'm
you
always like,
kidding
that's
me?
always the most terrifying part of the episode is like, all right, let's show what we did.
Oh my God, I'm so cute as a cartoon. I am in love with that. I
Oh,
can't wait to
thank
have it.
you. Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for coming on the show. And thank you again to everyone who tuned in. Again, I am your host and in-house artist, Erin Leffler. Catch you next time on the drawing board.
Bye.